Bates Motel Season 3 Episode 7 The Last Supper. This was one heck of a progressive episode for two important characters. One, of course, being Norman. Um, I'll get to the ending because I just want to save that and just everything about that. But the other character was definitely Romero, and we got to learn about his family a little bit. We got to see that his father's actually in jail. Of course, they made it super ironic. It's like, the sheriff of this, small town, of all people, his father's the one who's in jail. Not just in prison for doing something, but he was also a dirty cop. So it was like about as ironic as it could get. I mean, if he was a sheriff, that would have pretty much been the ultimate. But we got to meet his father. We find out that his mother's name is actually on this ledger, and she'd been dead for years. And she actually committed suicide, and Romero blames his father for that. And we may or may not get a real explanation to that. I think we will, because I'm pretty sure now that they've actually introduced his a familial element for his character. We'll get to see his father, and they'll have more conversations, and he'll try to figure out what he can do, because after he found that out, when he went to talk to the guy, he's like, now you understand why you should probably help me. So he's going to be in this really interesting position where he kind of has to balance, if his father doesn't actually take her name off, he's going to have to balance, like, basically his mother's name being tarnished like that, or, helping Norma and himself really not just get all shot up and stuff. So I don't know how it's gonna play out with this, and I don't know if he's gonna have a much tougher time. Like, this was obviously the initial moment where it's like he realizes he may or may not in the future have to kind of change sides a little, but after this, things are gonna pick up for him. He's gonna have to make some tough choices. His father might not take the name off the ledger, and the fact that he can do that, he mentioned, like, I'll take your name off. It showed that he has so much power, even behind bars, and there's all this stuff like, Swiss bank account type stuff. Of course, it's, Swiss bank accounts, but, there's just all this money and it's under his mother's name and stuff like that. So I'm sure we'll see his father more, and we'll have, a bit of a complication for his character where he has to, left or right. Like, he's going to have to choose what he wants to really do. And we obviously saw that when he got drunk. Like, he went to get drunk because it's already happening. It's already like, I have to figure out what to do, because if this info gets out there, it's her name. Not only would she be tarnished, but that would obviously fall back on me and my family, and it would kind of screw up a lot of stuff. Excuse me. So we already saw him kind of dealing with that when he got drunk, which also led to a very interesting scene. They're just pushing it, and I think they're just messing with us at this point. Romero and Norma almost kissing in this episode. It was like the closest it's ever been, I think. I'm trying to remember. I could have sworn they did kiss before, but every time I think back on it, it's like maybe they almost kissed then too, and it wasn't an actual kiss. But I could have sworn there was some time where they actually kissed before, and maybe they have, and I'm stupid and I can't remember. But ever since then, or whatever that scene was where they almost did, or they said something to each other, they've kind of been playing on it, and this was like almost there, and Norma kind of just, like, killed it, like, right at the end. And it was kind of funny. He says, like, he thinks she's beautiful and stuff, which I thought was funny, because she mentions how he'll probably regret having said that once he's sober. But it was an interesting little moment, definitely the closest they've come. And it was just really cool. And that was like the second little moment. Like, if Norman had seen that, who knows what he would have done in this episode, because we already got to see him freak out on the guy. I believe his name was James. So we already saw him get to freak out on the psychiatrist, and he's, getting asked the questions, and he's, cutting this bird open. That looked totally real too. It shows, like, man, that just looks like he actually is cutting a bird open. Maybe he was. I don't know. I doubt it. I hope not, because that would kind of suck for the show. They just killed a bird so he could cut it open. But, he's talking to the guy, and it's like, he kind of just stops it, and he's like, so how was it sleeping with my mother? And aside from the fact that he knew that, which was already a cool moment, because it was like, he's not an idiot. He knew what happened. And then it's like, he didn't exactly say, like, oh, I didn't sleep with her. He, kind of does the psychiatrist thing and asks, like, well, if that happened, why would it be such an issue? And he called, he says, like, if she, say your mother ran out on you and your brother and threw herself, like a whore onto, a family psychiatrist who could, lose his license, but that's not the point right now. How would that make you feel? And so he was very like evil genius about it, like throwing that in there, like a person who could totally lose their license, but that's I'm just hypothetical. And then of course, he's asking him, why does it bother you so much? And then it's like, would you, or do you want to sleep with your mother? And he's just like, he says nothing, and I had no idea what to expect. And then of course he freaking loses it, and he starts choking the guy. And I was so sure he was gonna die. I'm like, don't die right here. I was just thinking I was thinking about the guy, like he can't just die. Like he's not. It's Norman Bates. He's like a skinny dude. Like you could just throw your arms up and he's off. So that's all I was thinking. Like he can't die from him choking you. Like he, goes crazy, stabs people, this and that. Sure, like that's a little different, but he's just a skinny guy choking you, just flail and he's off. But he lets him go, and of course the guy like takes off because this little maniac wants to sleep with his mother, and then he freaks out when you ask him. So that was just an insane scene. And then just step after step in this episode was just pretty crazy. We got to learn about this sort of illegal opportunity with Emma, and how Dylan kind of needs to make $20,000 to kind of get her pushed up on this transplant list. And of course, when things kind of roll around, Caleb decides that he's not going to take on the, the gun running task, and so Dylan, most likely he'll end up taking it on. Like I know the guy said, like, tell me by the end of tonight, and technically this episode ended on that night. But I'm sure if Dylan goes back in the next episode, he'll probably tell him. I didn't get to see the preview, so I don't know what they showed about what may or may not happen in the next episode, because the stupid DVR cuts off at like the last second, and like the episode didn't even cut off yet. It was like I saw the ending scene, so I saw enough, but I just didn't get to unfortunately see the preview for the next episode. But he has this opportunity. I don't know if he will end up taking it, or if he'll be able to convince Caleb to take it. And he doesn't, like, it seems like Dylan doesn't really, like, he wouldn't really want to put him in that sort of situation, because, Caleb made the decision that he didn't want to do it. But, Dylan feels like he needs to now. He has this opportunity, and he wants to help Emma flat out live. Like, that's what he wants to do. So I'm not sure who's going to really end up taking on that task, and it could end up being very dangerous for either of them. But I feel like if Dylan is the one to do it, then that just kind of solidifies the fact that it's going to end up being really risky and dangerous, and something bad is going to happen that's going to really drag him back into sort of the illegal underground. And in this case, it'll be guns compared to just him transporting weed in and out of the city. So it'll be a lot more dangerous compared to the stuff he'd been doing in the past 2 seasons. But however that plays out, it should definitely be fairly interesting. Hopefully it does work out and no one ends up dying, and it's like a win-lose type of situation where someone gets hurt or flat out killed, and they still get the money to help Emma, but we end up losing someone else. So I hope that's not how it plays out, but sometimes you never know. I highly doubt they do it with Dylan. Caleb might be a possibility. I mean, especially with things kind of hitting their stride, where in the last episode, of course, Norma and him have this little moment where they kind of cry it out a little, and in this episode she really accepts him far beyond what I was expecting. I didn't think it would move nearly this fast, and I was glad to see that it did, because it made, like I said, for the ending, it was surprising to see him there. So that was kind of cool that he was even there. He mentioned, I was just going to leave this, and she's kind of in a different state than she was before. Like, she, having tried to kind of reinvent herself in the last episode, she is fairly accepting of him in this one, and I thought that was actually kind of cool. So she brings him in, and it's like obviously a huge shock to Caleb and Emma, and she starts playing the piano, which I don't think we ever knew about her in the series. They may have mentioned it somewhere in season 1. Actually, yeah, I believe we saw her play the piano maybe once, or maybe 1 to 3 times, and she played it for Norman, and he was singing. I remember that when they did the when they had the play last season, I believe she was playing the piano to kind of help them both out with singing and stuff like that. But I completely forgot about that, and so she's playing the piano and stuff, and they're singing together, and it's like happy family time. And then even before Norman came down, I was like, he's gonna be freaked out. I was trying to figure out, like, is he gonna be freaked out or is he gonna be okay? Because he, at one point, in the last episode, he was trying to help Dylan. Like, you kind of have to listen to him. He wants his father in his life, and he wants to make Caleb wants to make things right. And then there was this whole episode, and I'm like, I don't know what he's gonna do because he thought he was Norman in the last one. He was having crazy hallucinations with butterflies and the walls breaking like it was the end of days or something. And obviously the crazy moment with the psychiatrist where he chokes him. So I wasn't sure how he was gonna feel, and of course it ended up being Norman Bates style, where he was really freaking weird. And I was like terrified the entire ending, like the last 10 minutes of this whole episode. I was just thinking he's gonna freak out and like choke somebody else. I thought he was gonna choke Emma, like just lose his mind, start choking and yelling at anybody and everybody that was in the house. But I was pleasantly surprised until the very last scene. But the whole time I was freaked out. Like, he was already mad that Caleb was in there. And then Romero comes in and she's like, oh, join us for dinner. I'm like, they're just making this a family thing and he's going to freak out and bash somebody's head in. And, that's pretty much what happened. And I mentioned this in the last episode. Them actually growing as a family, even though it's only like, one or two extra people, that does not work for Norman. Like, it is not something that he wants to have in his life because it takes his mother away from him and he's obviously freaking insane. So the whole time I was petrified, but it was definitely a cool scene, like just very suspenseful because you don't know when they're gonna make it. Because I feel like at some point we're gonna have him freak out on people that he, claims to care about. Like, I guess you can say he cares about them, but I feel like at some point, it might not be this season. It might be, hopefully if we get a season 5, if it goes that far, it might not be for 2 other seasons, but at some point he's gonna snap on the people he cares about. A lot like how we did on Dylan in season 1. And that was before they kind of had their brotherly bonding thing going, but they were fighting left and right all the, in season 1, they were fighting in the kitchen all the freaking time. And when he actually tried to hit Dylan with the, like the meat mallet thing, I remember that too. And Dylan like dodged it and just like knocked him out. But, it was definitely a great episode. And then we have the final scene where they have the music playing, and I love how they kind of did the passage of time for the dinner, and it fades to each scene and everyone's eating and it's like, okay, this person gets up, they get up, and this and that, and he's just there sitting just looking weird. Then he's in bed looking weird, just eyes wide open, and then he's in his mother's room. He bends down and he just caresses her butt like one time, and it was just like that. There's not much to say about that. It was just the peak of his craziness. And he's killed people, and that's saying something. Like, this is the peak of his craziness. But, I don't know. It was definitely a great episode. Very surprising ending. It definitely ramped up and had me, freaked out at the ending. But I really loved it. I can't wait to see what we get in the next episode. But I want to know what you guys thought about this one. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And, of course, he was asked, does he want to sleep with his mother? And we got the scene at the end. So, what does Norman want? Does he want to be with his mother, or does he flat out want to be Norma Bates? Because, whether you've seen the movie or not, you might know how that all plays out. But even in this, there are just so many different things. Like, I don't know if he wants to be her. I don't know if he wants to be with her. It seems like he kind of wants to be with her. That's the typical thing because of how close they are. But, in the last episode where he goes nuts and he thinks that he is her, it just throws a wrench in that. It's like, now I don't really know. Does he want to kill her off and take her place? I mean, because at a certain point, if he kind of admits to what he wants to do, then she could end up a lot like Blair Watson, because that's kind of how that happens. He finds someone sexually attractive and he blacks out. And really, he was fortunate more than anyone that he didn't kill the woman that was a prostitute, honestly. So, I don't know how it's going to play out. I don't know what he wants to do. Got some big guesses, some pretty obvious guesses. But like I said, I want to know what you guys think about it. So please comment below, let me know. And thanks for watching.